Hey Gary, I'm going to be doing my redo of my group presentation, but solo because I did miss class because I was sick. But let's just get right into it. My group and I researched the creative curriculum. It is used at UWM's Children's Learning Center. I work there, and so do my group mates. So we are somewhat familiar with the curriculum and the main goals and objectives that this curriculum was designed to achieve. But it was really interesting to learn about all of the fine details of the curriculum. So let's just hop right into it. I have my laptop as a reference, so if I'm looking down or if there's a glare in my glasses, that's what you're seeing. So when I was researching purposes and objectives of the curriculum, like I could go point by point, but I really want to be able to put my perspectives and opinions into my own words. So if I'm not like specifically and strictly referencing my slides, that's why. Um, this curriculum is focused on the whole child, which incorporates not only academic success, but also self awareness, social skills, and expression. Um, from what I've observed in my work at the center, we learn a lot about helping children learn how to express themselves in many forms, not only with their words, but through art, through maybe telling others that they need space by physically stepping away from them. We often, at least with my 2-year-olds, we prompt the kids and give them options of things to say to peers so that in the future, when they're a little bit older, when they have a little less supervision, they have the skill set to be active communicators and potentially even like models for younger children as far as the expectations for behavior and growth. And now I'm on how the curriculum benefits children. Kind of like what I was saying before, the curriculum is focused on the whole child. So we're not just talking about them learning how to read, not just talking about them learning how to write or do math. This curriculum is for children ages 6 months to about 12 years. So it's a pretty big span of time that this curriculum addresses, which is why, in my opinion, or I interpret the curriculum as a way for kids to grow as people first and students second. Um, this is kind of fostered by nurturing relationships between children and adults. Children don't necessarily have one primary teacher and paras, for example. They will have a lead teacher who plans, and then other student staff who kind of ensure that plans are correctly facilitated and modeling for students ideal behaviors, helping students think through various problems they might be experiencing in the classroom, and things like that. Also, teachers support children in their problem solving, as I said. I cannot tell you how many like spats about nothing I've had to help kids think through and talk through. But at the end of the day, it's worth it because you hope to see the growth of a student going from maybe throwing tantrums, pouting in a corner, to being active communicators with everyone, not just teachers, but also with friends, peers, parents. Being able to solve their own problems, it's such an important skill, especially in children, and it kind of gives them a leg up being in group care using this curriculum when they enter the school setting, and conflicts become a little more intense. They might become a little more complicated, and these students will hopefully have the skills that they need to solve problems actively and to model for other students different ways to solve problems, different ways to foster relationships, different ways to be people. Moving on, areas of learning included in the curriculum are focusing on social emotional learning competencies, self-awareness, self-management, self-help, being able to help yourself, and having the ability to be mindful of things that you're thinking and feeling and being able to appropriately process that in real time and in real life. So once again, I know that the last two slides kind of touched upon the whole child. Well, the creative curriculum, my interpretation of it, my understanding of it is that students need to understand themselves first so that they can understand others second. So what we will see in this aspect of the curriculum is, once again, teachers modeling for students how to resolve conflicts, but also modeling for students or in talking students through how to be mindful. We see that a lot with things like naming the emotion. That's one of the main factors that we incorporate into our classrooms. Being able to say to a child, if they cannot express how they're feeling with words, well, you seem upset, you seem sad, you seem angry, you seem happy. Because it's important to recognize all emotions. And by doing that, we help kids understand what they're experiencing. There are also cognitive and general knowledge aspects of the curriculum, making connections, solving problems, attending, engaging, and all of that. Um, Once again, there isn't necessarily a set academic curriculum. We're not sitting kids down at desks typically to talk about alphabetical knowledge or phonics or arithmetic. We are designing and incorporating various games and activities so that students can kind of make natural connections between what they're doing and real life scenarios. So, for example, I've worked in both toddler and preschool rooms as well as a kindergarten classroom at the center. And there might have been a group of kids pulled at the age of 4 or 5 to start fostering some of those important skills that they'll need when they enter the traditional school setting. But more often than not, we're seeing activities that are teaching kids how to follow directions. We're seeing activities that encourage kids to develop an understanding of self expression and what it means to express your emotions. We're seeing kids do mathematical projects. I mean, during free play, if kids are playing with blocks and they want to incorporate a ramp and a ball, you're teaching those kids to observe what they're doing and make conclusions based on what they're playing with. If kids are free reading, we're asking them, is it fiction? Is it nonfiction? Do you see pictures of real animals or people, or is everything drawn out? And of course, once again, we love to incorporate that artistic aspect. If we're studying the seasons, we might ask kids to draw what they think about when they think of the different seasons. You know, if it's snowing outside, we'll give them some cotton balls and glue and like have them make a little scene. If it's summer, we'll have them do cutting and gluing activities and design their own flower. So just touching on that once again, there are so many different aspects of this curriculum that contribute to helping the child understand themselves first so that they can understand other things later. There is also extensive language development and communication at the center. As I said, I know I'm kind of, I don't want, well, I'm kind of, riding the wheels off this. I don't know what correct thing to say. I know it's kind of like going over the same things, but at the end of the day, like, yes, once again, we are modeling interactions for students or responses to conflict. We are making sure that students are actively engaging in play together so that they can further develop language skills. We're encouraging them to communicate with each other. For example, if a student comes up to me and says, why is that other kid playing with that? The first thing I'm going to say is, did you ask them? Because I might not even understand what the other child is doing. I want my students to be able to have the confidence, the self advocacy, and oh my gosh, what is the word? I want them to be able to ask their own questions and advocate for themselves and explore their curiosity through language. Because once again, that's how we build up the whole child. We make sure they're engaging with peers. We're making sure that they are engaging in appropriate activities, conversations, projects, etc. Um, so that's that. As far as health and physical development, most classrooms have, um, once again, play-based learning. We have 2 gyms in our center, or actually we might have 4 or 5. They all vary with the types of materials there are, the size of the gym, and other things like that, depending on where they are in their physical development. And areas of learning are fostered through play, interactions, natural interactions, relationships with teachers and other trusted adults, classroom community, which is super important. We do like to ask the kids questions about other kids that they know in the classroom. Questions such as, you know, who would you like to play with? Why do you like playing with them? And just making sure that they can understand that, like, when they are in the classroom, we are one community and we are going to stick together and we are going to care about one another. Um, Moving on, how does the curriculum extend into the educational setting? I touched on this a little bit earlier, helping a child understand themselves before they understand others. But there's also a teaching cycle from the Wisconsin Model of Early Learning Standards, aka WIMLS. Um, and essentially, this cycle is about using planned activities and environmental changes, as well as assessments, creating individual goals, plan environment, stuff like that. I'm not super well versed in this part, I'm not gonna lie. But as far as the creative curriculum as a whole, lessons are based upon child's interests. There are hands-on activities. We want to make sure the kids are moving and having as many sensory experiences as possible during one activity so that they can have a variety of different ways in which they are engaging with that activity. There is an emphasis on the importance of meeting relationships with families. There are numerous after school activities that families are welcome to participate in: family yoga, family, movie nights. Um, we've done cultural nights and class parties and things like that to make sure that families are talking, but also kids get that quality time with their family that they so deserve and need. As far as family engagement as well, families do receive newsletters, emails, and other direct lines of communication, not only between their student's lead teacher, but with the center as a whole. There are a lot of moving parts when we talk about how we make sure children are ready once again to kind of transition into the more traditional school setting. And part of that is making sure that families are also becoming accustomed to being active participants in the school community. Peyton, I'm so jealous that she gets to be a lead teacher who definitely already knows a lot of this, but got to kind of dig into it more because there are a lot of questions that I still ask about what our lead teachers are doing in the center. So lead teachers do regular assessments of kids. We do have some special ed resources in the center. We have sensory spaces. We have a plethora of adults who can have one-on-one time with students who might be struggling in one or more or many aspects of the creative curriculum. There are organization strategies such as various ways to organize toys. We usually incorporate centers into the classroom, at least strictly for kindergarten and school age groups. Child portfolios are made in some classes but not others, just so that parents can also track the progress that their child is making over the course of the year. And there is thorough communication and record keeping. So it is kind of nice to know that when you're dropping off your child or picking up your child, you will most likely see your lead teacher or someone who will interact with them relatively regularly through the day. The relationships that we build with students aren't strictly based on academics, like I said. We're focusing on developing the whole child, making sure they're building that emotional intelligence, that social intelligence, and that academic intelligence, not just picking one of each. And it does help to have more than one staff in the room at a time, because in traditional schools, you might not have those resources. You might have one teacher and a para or two for a group of 25, whereas at the center, you will probably see a group of 8 with a lead teacher as well as 2 to 3 other student staff. So, what the curriculum looks like. Play-based learning, as I've touched upon, child-led activities, longer studies instead of shorter lessons, and individualized instruction instead of a universal way of learning. Another perk of this small group setting is that you can really dive into what kids need individually. And if you know that a kid needs specific supports, you can take that on as one of many teachers, or you can make sure that your entire group of teachers is aware and make a plan for that child as far as how to incorporate those resources as you see fit. We like kids to be able to explore things over a long period of time. There aren't units and specific sections of units and subsections of units. The planning is more along the lines of, my kids are interested in this, and I'm going to allow them to be interested in this and encourage their curiosity in this until we move on to the next thing. So once again, for example, if students are learning about sandcastles, I know it seems random, but the idea of packing the sand, scooping the sand, is the sand wet, is the sand dry? They have access to a sandbox consistently. They're going to learn about how sand is impacted by the elements as well as how sand forms, and they learn more about that texture. Or if students are interested in something along the lines of like astronomy, I will take it upon myself to design an activity or a lesson, even as a student staff, to incorporate that interest into the classroom. You know, are we going to put paper planets on the ceiling? Are we going to get a Milky Way galaxy light? Are we going to put books on the shelf about astrology and or astronomy? We give kids the time and the space to explore their interests on a deeper level rather than having a set time frame for how long we expect them to be interested in something or how long we can budget for kids to be excited and curious about something. The promises and potential pitfalls of the curriculum are the following. Pros include emphasis on development of the whole child, active learning, individualized learning, cultural sensitivity, parental involvement, and assessment tool usage. Potential pitfalls. Planning is time consuming and particular. There are a lot of resources that come into play that teachers need access to, whether it's through the center's administration or UWM's administration. There can be a lot of hoops to jump through. There is inconsistent implementation. So if you have a group of kids who are used to a specific routine because it worked for that group, but let's say in a group of 10, 3 or 4 kids move out, and now you have an entirely different community with an entirely different set of needs, that might be a problem. Not a problem, but you're going to have to readjust the kids who are used to their specific routine alongside incorporating these new students into this new routine, if that makes sense, because each room is so different. There isn't a baseline for how everything is organized and planned. The cost at the center is pretty crazy. There are a lot of materials. There is a lot of sharing, but there is no state funding. There is no, or very limited federal funding, and I am not too sure about how grants can be incorporated into the budget of the center. So a lot of questions to ask. Last is age appropriateness and lack of flexibility. So my interpretation of age appropriateness is the groupings that we have of kids can be inconsistent. For example, right now I'm working with students who are between 18 months old to 3 years old. So being able to measure and assess the learning needs of each student can be quite a challenge because they're in different developmental domains. And so yes, we can have older kids kind of show the younger kids the ropes. We also need to make sure that we're still paying attention to our older kids and, you know, fostering their learning and catering to their needs. But other than that, that is my presentation. I know I'm over time. I have a lot to talk about, and I appreciate the opportunity to make up my presentation. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in class.